Six 2025 wide receiver recruits you should bet are going to make an impact this year. And we're going to talk quite a bit about Vernell Brown III and why he's a microcosm of what all young receivers should do.
Locked On presents The Portal, the daily podcast covering college football recruiting and everything NIL. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back into The Portal. I am your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst and writer. Thank you for making The Portal your first listen each and every day. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and just search LO The Portal wherever you're at, and we will get you all the recruiting news and all the transfer portal stuff you can handle. Today's show is going to be fun because we're talking about wide receiver recruits and impact players like my guy, Vernell Brown III, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com. As I opened, wide receiver recruits, they're becoming more and more and more important. I'm going to use Vernell Brown III out of Jones High School in Orlando, Florida as an example, but there are 5 other guys that are really good too. Which one plays the most and why? We're going to discuss some of that. A few under the radar kind of thoughts. But overall, the theme here for anybody out there that is a young wide receiver trying to get to the level that a Dallas Wilson or Vernell Brown is at UF, DeCorian Moore going to Oregon, whatever player it is, it's how you handle your business off the field. So let's dive in to these 6 players. I'm just going to list them, then I'm going to go through who, what, when, where, and why I picked these guys. Now, keep in mind, depth chart is part of this, but most of these kids are going to big-time programs. I expect them in some capacity to make their way up the depth chart because they have that ability between the years. If you're not smart enough to understand that it's about training and all the things that you do before you put on the cleats, you're not going to make it to a big-time P4 program. So as I noted in the opening, and if you saw the thumbnail on YouTube, Vernell Brown III is my pick for a guy that is going to be a big-time player pretty much early on for the Gators. I could see him being a punt return guy, being a rotational slot guy early. It's not like UF doesn't have receivers. They got a really nice depth chart at wide receiver based on transfers in their last couple of recruiting classes, but they still haven't got a definitive answer at any one spot as far as I'm concerned because they're still working in DJ Wagway. He needs to get through spring ball. Those things will take care of themselves. But I guarantee you this. Vernell is about 5'10 and a half, 5'11", 175 pounds, give or take. He will find a way to make it on the field because of his work ethic, how he treats people around him, including his coaches. That's very important. And the respect that he gets from everybody. And that will include the upperclassmen in Gainesville. If you're going to win big, you've got to have kids like this pushing the pile forward on the depth chart. I don't want to come out to practice today and be goofing around because Vernell's going to take my spot. That's the kind of personality he has to push those older guys to say that. That's important for your program. And it can be at any position, not just wide receiver. And I think Vernell will play slot, at least to start out. And again, it's not like they need him to play a ton, but he will be in the rotation in some capacity. And don't be surprised if he helps out on kickoff, punt return, or the punt team. He will make an impact in Gainesville. Before the year's over, there's going to be an injury or somebody's going to need some help, take a breather in the middle of a game after running a go route. Vernell's going to come in and set a key block, make a big reception, and make a guy miss, do something. He will make his mark. And I can guarantee you a kid that has well over a 4.0 GPA coming out of high school and is an intellectually gifted young man, as I've met in quite a while, he'll figure that out how to do it from game to game, from week to week. That's how you make a mark in college football. Be a person like Vernell Brown III. Use your brain more than your feet. He's gifted. I get that. His father was very talented too, but you got to take care of business off the field, and he's a great example of that. Now, there's no particular order per se on this in terms of the 6 guys that I mentioned, but I want to go next with a kid that I saw in 7-on, and I loved his high school film, and the school he's going to needs help. NC State. Jerel Boulder. This is a kid you're probably like, who? He's from Marshville, North Carolina. Makes guys miss. He's built pretty much like Brown. They're similar stature. He's a little heavier, but he's at Forest Hills High School. going into NC State. This is a guy, just like Vernell, at the catch point, he plays bigger than his height and weight. He's a little under 6 foot. He's 5'10", 5'11", but he's strong and his timing is impeccable. This is a kid, much like Vernell, that goes out of his way to be respectful to the media. The coaches like being around him. The players respect him. When it's a third down scenario, when I'd see him play, people wanted to see what he was doing. He commanded respect. Those are the kinds of young men that will find a way to respect their coaches at the college level too, and then in reverse, the coaches will respect them and give them a chance. I'm not saying he's going to walk into NC State and play right away, but the Wolfpack don't have the same depth chart as, say, a Texas or Florida receiver, and they could probably use his help. Do not be surprised again, like a lot of these young men, if they find a way onto the field as special teams members, not just as returners. Maybe they're a gunner. Maybe they're a guy that finds his way onto the kickoff team. Whatever, not return, like go down and tackle somebody. Boulder is that guy. And again, once you earn that respect from the staff and older players see you do that, it will impact your ability to play on 1st and 10. And then even more importantly for a receiver, third down and obvious passing situations, 3rd and 5 or longer. He's a guy that will eventually be in that rotation at NC State. The only way I see him not is if he's injured. Boulder is a highly competitive kid that is clutch. He's a little underrated because he didn't go to a quote-unquote prominent prep program. North Carolina's loaded, but it's not a school that every year has 5 kids. It's not like American Heritage in South Florida. It's not like Duncanville in Dallas. It's not like one of the big box schools in Gwinnett County just outside of Atlanta. It's difficult for every school to get the same attention. I understand that because I have to cover so many states, but this kid stands out. Boulder will make an impact in Raleigh this next season. Next, this is a kid that's an easy pick. One of my favorite players in the 25 class that I think, if you wanted to argue it, he could have the biggest impact of any of these 6. He's the number 1 recruit at receiver by most services. I've seen him play multiple times, and there's nothing about him that tells me that the tail end of his career at the high school level was anything but indicative of what's going to happen next. He just kept getting better, even when teams focused on him. Down the stretch, he was electric. DeCorian Moore out of Duncanville can make you miss, has really good hands, catches the ball away from his body. He's a guy that can make the one-handed grab and what have you, but he's technically sound for his age, way advanced. Duncanville does a great job. He's had good trainers, and most importantly, he's had good work ethic. His speed will, and God-given at that, his speed will help him find a way onto the field in Eugene. I'm just curious to see what Dan Lanning and his staff come up with for the best way to get him on the field early. They have some good receivers coming back, but you're going to rotate guys. And Moore's talent is probably as much, if not better, than anybody else on the Ducks roster. Which kid does he beat out, or does he rotate with? Maybe he rotates early, then beats that player out later. I don't necessarily think he'll start in game 1, but he could. But by game 6, if he's not starting, I would be surprised. Mature, confident, technically sound. DeCorian Moore has all those intangibles. And again, the speed is very different than most. There are some other guys similar to him, like Jamie French is a guy I didn't put on this list. He reminds me of DeCorian in a lot of ways. That to make you miss from Jamie might be the best. But the speed and the technically sound part of it, and going to Oregon where they're going to have other veterans around him, I think will really help. He won't be double teamed much, if at all. That's not going to be fun for teams, especially if they put him in the slot. I don't know how they're going to use him. He could play flanker up on the line, but if he plays slot and he's back off the line and you can't jam him, DeCorian Moore is really gifted for a young receiver at running his routes. And if you know your craft like he does, that makes it very, very difficult. When we come back, I'm going to give you 3 more guys that I think are going to make an immediate impact here on the Portal. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on the fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in on the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting, whether I'm backing my team for a late game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three-pointer. I never feel like I'm missing my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Caleb Cunningham is going to Ole Miss. Originally committed to University of Alabama, but out of Choctaw County High School in Mississippi, he flipped it to play for the Rebels. If there's any coach that I have confidence will find a way to hone in some skills that Caleb Cunningham has, that's Lane Kiffin. He will figure out a way to get him either in the slot, the boundary, playing flanker, using him on reverses, putting him in the backfield. I don't know what he'll do. Wayne's a different guy. He will figure it out. But at the same time, it's a very important thing to think about here. How many guys are play callers like Wayne? I mean, just truly, you can like him or dislike him. He's pretty darn creative. Caleb's 6'2", 6'3", very long arms, and he makes the big catch down the field. He might be as good a deep ball guy in this class, and I'm curious to see how he adjusts to the SEC level. It's not an easy road to hoe when you're going up against the teams that he will be playing, but Caleb is also a guy that never really shied away from competition. He did well in any event that he went to, and his high school consistency plays into this as well. Dominant sophomore, junior, senior year, like whenever he was actually playing, that was a guy that you knew if you're on the other side, you had to figure out a way to take him away from the deep ball at least. And then even as a taller guy at the receiver position, if you forced him into throwing short, he could make you miss. And his ability to do that, combine that with his speed, the first guy misses, and then the track race is on. You're in a bad situation with him at the high school level. So he made a lot of guys look bad. Still, to me, the most fun thing was watching him go up for deep balls. Even if a guy was playing 10 yards off and they'd throw it up to him, he had a pretty darn good chance of going and getting it. I love his chance to play early at Ole Miss. Next, Dallas Wilson. This is a kid that I saw a bunch as a sophomore. I'd heard about him when I went to Tech High School one day in Tampa. This is my next guy, blah, blah, blah. And he was going into his sophomore year. But he started to really play well his sophomore year. Then as a junior, he was a complete dude. Senior year, same kind of deal. Big body. He can be the boundary receiver one day. Built in a similar fashion. Not saying he's exactly the same player by any means as Jeremiah Smith. 6'3"-ish. Has the long limbs. Very competitive. And despite his size, he's 200 pounds, give or take. I would say that Wilson is probably an 8 out of 10 in terms of just twitchiness for a bigger guy. He's not like the twitchiest guy I've ever seen at that size, but he's at least an 8 out of 10, and you're not going to win 50-50s with him very often. Very strong when he's going up for a jump ball, takes the ball away. The only thing with him is where are they going to play him at? I don't know. Again, just like with Vernell at UF, they've got other good receivers. They're going to find a way, in my opinion, though, to get Wilson on the field. I just think he's too good. We'll see how that goes. The last guy here that I want to mention out of my top 6 before going into what makes some of these guys get a chance to play early is a fun one. Quentin Gibson. He's out of North Crowley. He's going to play for Dion at Colorado. I saw him at Under Armour. My buddy Mark Henry, who I have here on the show about once a week, he told me, hey, this guy's a dude. He can really, really play. Let's see if you could find out something about him at Under Armour. We talked about him a little bit. Man, he was good. As a return man, I guarantee it. He's only like 160 pounds, give or take, maybe not even that much. But Dion is creative with the offense and using punt returners, using guys in the slot. He's proven that. And he was a guy like that. When he played offense, that was the kind of player he was. So I believe they're going to find a way. And you could even argue he might have the biggest impact of anybody here because they lost Travis, obviously. He's going to be a top 5 pick in the draft. They're going to have somebody find him a role on that offense. They're going to come up with something, and then it's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger as the season goes on. Quentin Gibson is really, really good. As for what it takes to make a recruit come in and play early, I touched on it a little bit earlier in the pod. You're off the field, but let me expand just a little bit more on that for people out there. This is what I get from college coaches. How much they pick up the playbook is the biggest thing. Receiver coaches want you to know the entire route tree and everything they do from the outset. It's not realistic, but when I say route tree, for their system, how they word it, all the terminology, not just knowing how to run it, but as soon as you hear it, it's automatic. You know what you're doing. That's reps. So the sooner you're enrolled, the more time you spend with the playbook and actually take it serious is a big part of that. And before you ever even get to the recruiting process, understanding a lot of different systems and being around people that have been in the game in the passing side of the world, like not just offense in general, but like all the different words and different phrases that come with it. The more you're around that terminology, it's going to help you. Do you accept that willingly? It's not a lot of fun necessarily. The more you learn about different routes, different names for routes, all the little things, you will make the college coaches feel more comfortable about offering you, for one. But for two, once you make it to campus, they're more likely to play you. Now, the other part of that, again, is just something I've said 2 or 3 times already on the show, if not more. Maturity. That's not just physical, like a Dallas Wilson who's 200 pounds already, but mental. Do the coaches respect you? Do the people around you, your teachers, all your advisors, everybody in the football office, everybody that you are around, are you respected? If they like you, they're more likely to treat you with more respect and give you a chance to get in the lineup, not just special teams, but get in the lineup. That's very important. Finally, it's just God-given talent and knowing what you can do and just taking it on. Don't worry that you're going against older guys as a freshman. If you want to make an impact, you've got to believe in yourself. That's about as basic as it gets, but it's arguably the most important thing. You got to believe in yourself. When we come back, I'm going to talk about how incredible it is in the state of Florida at receiver. It's just insane every year. I'm going to give you a stat that just puts it in perspective from this past recruiting class on just how good receivers are out of the Sunshine State. "14 of the top 60 recruits by 24/7 Sports in the state of Florida were wide receivers. That equates to just under 25%. If you're looking at it from a perspective of balance, well, Florida doesn't have it because wide receiver and usually DB too are loaded every year. Again, 14 of the top 60 recruits. Now, I know a lot of the people that work at 24/7, and we get to see the same 7-on tournaments, and I'm going through the list. There's only like 1 or 2 guys that I hadn't seen on there. And I'm like, checkbox, checkbox, checkbox. Power 4 guys. So you might ask, what is it about the state of Florida that makes it so different from many other states? Well, there's a couple of things. Number one, it's desire. For whatever reason, and this is in many different parts of the state, but especially in South Florida, it's a I'm going to overcome attitude. That never goes out of style. When I see some of the kids in South Florida, they're not always the biggest guy. Not always. But they're not going to be guarded, even on a jump ball situation. They will figure out a way to box you off, to pin you to the sideline. If they get the outside or the inside, whatever it is they need, they figure it out. They know how to work with their quarterback for the best scenario with that player. They know when to break. They know when to do a stop and start just the way the receiver coach told them. They overcome. It's a lot of fun to watch receivers from Florida because whether I'm at a practice at Chaminade, seeing a game in the Tampa area, when I went to see Vernell Brown play multiple times at Jones, doesn't matter. Jeremiah Smith, you name it. There are so many guys, they take their craft very serious in Florida. Then on top of it, maybe this is just a cultural thing down there. Just about everybody runs track. If you're getting faster, it's probably going to help you at any position, but receiver in particular, it's a must. They have more guys that can run a 9 route and beat a team than probably any other state. It's just pure speed, not necessarily all the way developed, just raw, unadulterated speed, state of Florida. Trained up, I'll take Texas, but they've got better facilities and whatnot. Florida, just raw speed, I'll take it. And again, the kids, they want it. And that's why, again, 14 out of the top 60 from 24/7. And any of the, if I'd have used rivals, it would have been almost identical. Might have been a player or two different who it was, but it'd have been the same thing. Bottom line, it's why Georgia, Alabama, Notre Dame, Ohio State, these schools all go in there to try to get the top players. And of course, all the programs in the state of Florida do as well. They have receivers every year. It's not going to change. And I believe that Florida is the best state for just consistently having the raw talent at receiver for any school. If you're not recruiting receivers in Florida, why not? There's even Texas went in and got French, and they've got elite receivers. I'll take Dallas over any city for just receivers because they're so polished and play early, but they still went and got Jamie French out of Jacksonville. What's that tell you? There is really, really good talent in the Sunshine State. Thank you once again for making the portal your first listen each and every day. I truly appreciate you stopping in to learn about more recruiting news, transfer portal, and NIL. We talk about it every day, have multiple shows almost every day, and it is a lot of fun. Please find us on YouTube, on Apple, on Spotify. If you go to YouTube, it's not easy to find yet. LO, the portal. If you get into YouTube and just go to the top box, LO, the portal, you'll have more success in finding it. But even on just Google, if you type in LO, the portal, you'll get Spotify, you'll get Apple. If you just want to take it with you to the gym, car ride, whatever, it's pretty easy. Like, subscribe, and share this podcast. We will see you again soon.